Imagine you're an astronaut, floating in the desolate vacuum of space. You look back at Earth, this beautiful blue marble teeming with life, suspended in the silent darkness. And then you start to think about the conditions that make this fragile existence possible, not just on Earth, but in the entire universe. Science in the last century has made a truly astonishing discovery, one that is shaking the foundations of cosmology and philosophy. It turns out that the universe we inhabit is balanced. On an unbelievable, razor-thin edge, the fundamental constants and quantities of nature things, like the force of gravity, the strength of the electromagnetic force, the ratio of the masses of elementary particles, set at values that are exquisitely, improbably precise. If any one of these dozens of values were altered by even a hair's breadth, the universe as we know it could not exist. No stars, no planets, no complex chemistry, and certainly no life. It's as if the universe knew we were coming. Physicists call this the fine-tuning of the universe, and it presents us with perhaps the most profound mystery in all of science. Is this mind-boggling precision just a brute, inexplicable fact? Is it the result of some cosmic lottery, an unfathomably lucky accident? Or is it the signature of a mind? Is the fine-tuning of the cosmos evidence of deliberate, intelligent design? Today, we delve into one of the most powerful and debated arguments for the existence of God. In the modern era, the fine-tuning argument: is our universe a cosmic coincidence or a cosmic conspiracy? Before we debate the why, let's get crystal clear on the what. What exactly do scientists mean by tuning? It means that the basic structure of the universe is determined by a set of fundamental constants and quantities. These are numbers that are just plugged in to the equations of physics. They aren't determined by the laws of physics. They determine how the laws operate. And the shocking discovery is that the values of these numbers fall within an extraordinarily narrow range that is required for complex life to exist anywhere in the cosmos. Let's look at just a few famous examples. 1. The force of gravity. Gravity holds stars and galaxies together. If gravity were just slightly stronger, by maybe 1 part in 1034, stars would burn too hot and too quickly for life to develop. If it were just slightly weaker, stars and planets might never form at all. The entire cosmic structure depends on this precise value. Visual: a graphic showing a dial for gravity set perfectly in a tiny green zone. 2. The electromagnetic force. This force binds electrons to atomic nuclei, allowing chemistry to happen. If it were slightly stronger, atoms might not share electrons, meaning no complex molecules could form. If it were slightly weaker, electrons wouldn't stay bound to nuclei. Change this force by just 4%, and life as we know it is impossible. 3. The strong nuclear force. This force binds protons and neutrons together in atomic nuclei. If it were just 2% stronger, there would be no hydrogen, the fuel for stars and the basis of water. If it were just 2% weaker, complex atoms beyond hydrogen couldn't form. No complex chemistry, no life. 4. The cosmological constant. This number represents the energy density of empty space, driving the accelerating expansion of the universe. This is perhaps the most famous example of fine-tuning. Its observed value is incredibly small. If it was significantly larger and positive, the universe would have expanded so rapidly that galaxies and stars never would have formed. If it was significantly larger and negative, the universe would have collapsed back in on itself long ago. Physicists estimate the cosmological constant is fine-tuned to something like 1 part in 10, 120. Visual, graphic, showing 1 followed by 120 zeros. To grasp that number, imagine trying to hit a single, specific atom somewhere in the entire observable universe with a single dart, blindfolded. The precision required is simply staggering. And there are dozens of other examples like this, involving the masses of particles, the balance of fundamental forces, and the initial conditions of the Big Bang. As the late, great physicist Freeman Dyson put it, "The more I examine the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe in some sense must have known we were coming." Even staunchly atheistic physicists like Stephen Hawking acknowledged. The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. The fact of fine-tuning is not seriously debated among physicists. The burning question is, why? When faced with such an astonishing fact, our rational minds demand an explanation. Logically, there seem to be only 3 possible categories of explanation for the fine-tuning of the universe. 1. Physical necessity. The constants had to have the values they do. They couldn't have been different. Perhaps some future theory of everything will show that these values are mathematically required by the laws of physics themselves. 2. Chance. The constants could have been different, but we just got incredibly, unbelievably lucky. Our universe is just one possibility, and its life-permitting values are a result of pure, random chance. 3. Design. The constants were deliberately chosen or set to have these precise values by some form of intelligence or consciousness, specifically to allow for the existence of life. Let's examine each of these possibilities. Could it be that the constants aren't tuned at all, but are simply the only values they could possibly have? Maybe they are linked together in some deep way by a future theory like string theory or M-theory, so that if you set one, all the others are automatically fixed to their life-permitting values. This is certainly a logical possibility. If it were true, the fine-tuning argument for design would evaporate instantly. However, there are major problems with this explanation right now. No current evidence. As of today, we have absolutely no physical theory that successfully predicts or necessitates all these constants from first principles. String theory, the leading candidate, seems to allow for a vast landscape of possible universes with different constants estimated at 10,500 possible configurations, making our specific set seem even less necessary. Constants seem independent. The known fundamental constants appear, based on current physics, to be independent parameters. There's no known reason why the strength of gravity must be linked to the mass of the electron in the way required for life. Doesn't explain life-permitting values. Even if a future theory did show all the constants were linked, it wouldn't explain why that single, necessary set of linked values just happens to be the set that allows for complex life. It would just push the mystery back one step. Why this necessary structure? So, while physical necessity remains a theoretical possibility, it currently has no scientific support and seems increasingly unlikely given the apparent independence of the constants and the theoretical landscape suggested by string theory. We must, for now, look elsewhere. Okay, so maybe the constants could have been different. Maybe the Big Bang was like rolling a cosmic dice set with billions of sides, and we just happened to roll the perfect combination for life. If our universe is the only universe that exists, this explanation seems incredibly implausible. The odds against getting all these dozens of constants right by pure chance are simply astronomical, far beyond anything we would accept as a mere coincidence in any other area of life. Imagine finding a combination lock with 120 dials, and you randomly spin them all, and the lock opens on the first try. Would you just shrug and say, "Wow, lucky guess"? No, you would immediately suspect someone set the combination beforehand. Visual combination lock with many dials clicking open. Or imagine facing a firing squad of 100 expert marksmen. They all fire and they all miss. Would you just think, "Gosh, they're all having a really bad day"? No, you'd assume the misses were intentional. Visual firing squad missing a target. The sheer improbability of fine-tuning by chance in a single universe is so high that even most atheistic scientists find it deeply unsatisfying. This leads us to the most popular and sophisticated version of the chance explanation. If the odds are too improbable in one universe, how do you make them probable? Simple. You postulate many universes. A vast number, perhaps an infinite number, of other universes, each with its own random set of physical constants. This is the multiverse hypothesis. The idea is that if there are enough universes in this cosmic landscape, perhaps generated by mechanisms like eternal inflation or string theory, then, by sheer probability, some universes must randomly stumble upon the right combination of constants necessary for life. And then, the argument goes, we shouldn't be surprised to find ourselves in one of those rare life-permitting universes. Why? Because we couldn't exist anywhere else to observe it. This is the anthropic principle. We observe the universe to be finely tuned, because if it weren't finely tuned, we wouldn't be here to observe it. In a multiverse, the fine-tuning of our universe isn't a miracle, it's just a selection effect. We won the cosmic lottery, but there were trillions upon trillions of losing tickets other universes generated. This multiverse explanation is now, arguably, the leading atheistic response to the fine-tuning argument. It seems to elegantly explain away the improbable luck without resorting to a designer. However, the multiverse hypothesis, while popular, faces some very significant challenges of its own. No direct empirical evidence. Crucially, there is currently zero direct observational or experimental evidence that any other universes exist. They are, by their very nature, causally disconnected from our own. Postulating them is an act of inference, not observation. Is this still science, or has it crossed the line into metaphysics? Is it testable, falsifiable? A core principle of science is that a hypothesis must be falsifiable. There must be some conceivable observation that could prove it wrong. It's unclear how the multiverse hypothesis could ever be falsified. If it can explain any observation because anything is possible somewhere, does it really explain anything? Does it require its own fine-tuning? Many multiverse-generating models, like inflationary cosmology, seem to require their own fine-tuning to work correctly and produce a large variety of universes. If the universe generator itself needs to be finely tuned, then we haven't solved the problem. We've just pushed it back one level. Who tuned the tuner? Occam's razor. Does postulating an infinite or near-infinite number of unobservable universes really represent a simpler, more parsimonious explanation than postulating one single, transcendent mind? Occam's razor generally favors the explanation with fewer theoretical entities. A potentially infinite number of universes seems like the ultimate violation of this principle. The multiverse is a fascinating theoretical possibility, but it is far from a proven scientific fact. Relying on it to explain fine-tuning requires a significant leap of faith into the unobserved. This brings us to the third possibility: design. The argument here is straightforward. we observe and affect the astonishing, improbable fine-tuning of the cosmos for life. We are looking for an adequate cause. What kind of cause do we know, from our own experience, is capable of producing fine-tuning, complex specified information, and goal-directed systems? Intelligent minds. When we find a watch on the beach, we don't assume the waves and sand randomly assembled it over billions of years. We infer a watchmaker. Visual, a complex watch mechanism. When we receive a coded message, we infer an intelligence sent it. When we look at the intricate machinery of a living cell or the astonishing precision of the cosmos, the design argument proposes that the most rational inference is an intelligent designer. Design proponents argue that an intelligent mind provides a simple, coherent, and experientially grounded explanation for the fine-tuning. The universe was intentionally designed with the emergence of life in mind, compared to the alternatives. It doesn't rely on physical laws we haven't discovered necessity. It doesn't rely on probabilities so small they defy comprehension, single universe chance. It doesn't rely on the existence of potentially infinite, unobservable entities, multiverse. The design explanation posits one entity, an intelligent mind whose known causal powers, intelligence, foresight, purpose, are precisely the kind needed to explain the effect we observe. From this perspective, design is arguably the most rational and parsimonious explanation available. Of course, the design inference faces its own objections. The most famous is, if the universe needs a designer, then who designed the designer? This sounds like a clever checkmate, but most philosophers argue it's flawed. 1. You don't need to explain the explanation. To infer a watchmaker from a watch, you don't first need to explain the watchmaker's origins. The watch itself provides evidence for a maker, regardless of where the maker came from. Similarly, the fine-tuning provides evidence for a cosmic designer, even if we can't explain the designer's origin. 2. Category error, infinite redress. The argument assumes the designer must be complex, in the same way the universe is, thus requiring its own designer, leading to an infinite regress. But proponents argue the designer is likely a fundamentally different kind of entity, perhaps an unembodied mind, or a necessarily existent being that doesn't require a prior cause in the same way a contingent, physical universe does. Positing a necessarily existent, non-physical mind as the ultimate stopping point is arguably more coherent than an infinite regress of universes or causes. So, we stand before the astonishing fact of a universe exquisitely fine-tuned for life. What is the best explanation? Is it physical necessity? Unlikely, given current science. Is it chance in a single universe? Astronomically improbable. Is it chance across a multiverse? A speculative, untestable hypothesis that may not even solve the problem. Or is it design? An inference to an intelligent cause whose known powers match the effect we see. The fine-tuning of the cosmos does not prove the existence of God in a mathematical sense, but for many, it represents the single most powerful piece of evidence from the natural world that points towards a transcendent intelligence. A mind behind the mathematical elegance and life-permitting structure of our reality. And this brings us to the final, crucial debate. Is the fine-tuning of the cosmos the most compelling scientific clue pointing towards a transcendent mind, a whisper of purpose? Purpose in the grand silence? Or is it just a cosmic lottery ticket we happened to win? A mere selection effect in a potentially infinite sea of dead universes, explained away by the anthropic principle and the unproven existence of the multiverse. Where do you think the evidence points? Let me know your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the ultimate question of our cosmic origins fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that grapples with the biggest ideas at the intersection of science, philosophy, and faith. Thanks for watching.